Okay, so in today's live stream, I'm going to start off by answering questions that people have or comments on my YouTube channel about event photography mostly. But if there's a comment about something else, I'll answer that too. I find that I can be a little bit more thorough in my responses when I actually can speak rather than just having to type it out. And also when I'm out and about, I don't find a phone keyboard sufficient for me when I really want to express myself. So it's going to be fun to kind of go through all these questions, answer them, and then it will give you guys time to put in new questions if you have any or follow-up questions in the chat. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and begin doing some work. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going through the last few months of jobs and probably leave it at that, and looking for Instagram selects. Basically Instagram or maybe like blogging, not that I really blog individual jobs, but let's say I want to. I like to have all those photos categorized so it's ready to go. Unfortunately, what often happens is I get a little bit behind on doing this kind of thing with my other obligations, and so I have to go back and do it. My professional Instagram account at Mick Millman has unfortunately been drawing on jobs from years and years ago because I just haven't updated the folder I get those images from. Basically what I have to do is I make my selects in Lightroom and then I export it to a Google Drive folder, which I can then download photos to my phone, and then I go from there. So let's begin with the questions. So the first one is not event photography related. However, I'll go ahead and read it and address it. Heads up, you should never, all caps, cock the shutter on a manual camera, then fold it up. Suppose you get distracted and end up doing something else, get home and put the camera in a drawer till next time. Well, then chances are you just effed up your shutter and therefore your camera. Manual shutters like this rely on a spring to fire. Leave that spring under tension for a period of time and you've probably damaged that spring. Never leave it in the fire position, not even overnight. This rule applies to all manual shutters, not just fold-ups. Okay, so I'm not going to rewatch my video. I don't really like watching my old videos. But in the video I was shooting with the Voigtlander Vito 2, which is a folding camera, and I talked about how I'll cock the shutter and have it ready to go as part of my workflow when I'm actively using the camera. I've looked into this before, but I don't know how much truth there is to that you can never, or that it's that bad for the camera to leave the shutter cocked. I did read something on it once before. I'm not going to speculate on the commenters. I'm not going to speculate on that, on the commenter, but it does remind me a little bit of that black and white thinking you see in everything, but especially in the photography world, when people say you never do this, and like it's just so weird. But anyway, there are cameras that you need to in fact cock the shutter before you can close it. I believe the Rollei 35, you actually have to cock the shutter before you can draw the camera back into the lens. Next question is just a thank you, so thank you, Oasis TV. It may be the best 35mm. Okay, this is in regards to the Canon 1V review I did, which if you're an event photographer that shoots Canon and you want to get into film, not maybe for your work, but for fun, this is a highly recommended camera by me. It is the best camera, film camera Canon ever made, and that's undisputed. It was the last flagship camera, and so in my video when I talk about it being the greatest film camera ever made, I'm really referring to that, and I didn't mean for it to be clickbait or anything. But as far as technology goes, it was the last great flagship film camera. Nikon's flagship film camera came out before then. Minolta had an impressive flagship. I think that also came out before Canon. Canon seems to hold out the longest, and they actually did that with mirrorless as well. So Will93 says it may be the best 35mm film camera. It's certainly the most sophisticated film camera I can think of, but I don't think you're thinking about film to the... But don't limit your thinking about film to 35mm format. Sometimes when you read comments, it's like your reaction can be to take it as a criticism, and I don't know if he means it that way, but the way it's written, it's assuming, I'm assuming he's assuming that I'm limiting my thinking to 35 millimeter when I'm not. So I don't know what else to say on that one. Deliciously Me, I really love the colors and light in these photos and that lab. So the color and the light isn't because of any fancy editing or lens selection or the camera. It had to do with the fact that I was shooting all available light in that kind of golden hour to blue hour time frame. And because I want to emphasize that I don't think people need to go out and buy 1.2 lenses, but I do have a 51.2 and I do have a 135 f2 that I really love, which allows me to shoot a little bit later into the day before I have to rely on a flash. Deliciously Me also says she recognized a YouTuber that she follows there. Yeah, I'd love to know which one. I'm a little bit curious. It's funny because I live in Los Angeles, so there's going to be a lot of celebrities, and I typically have no idea who I'm photographing. I left my work open once, and an ex-girlfriend, when I went to the store, I came back, she's like, do you even know who you photograph? And I'm like, no. She's like, that's like the most famous supermodel in the world. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So, Bulgus Raphael, hi, what is the focal length of the Rolly 3.5? By the way, is this a Rolly 3? I don't know, dude. I don't know which one I have. I probably knew at some point. I'm someone who cares more about making images, and I don't get geeky about the cameras I'm shooting with. I just love shooting with different cameras, true, but it's about the experience for me. It's kind of like people that follow cars, but they don't really drive nice like race cars or anything like that, but they know the specs of all these cars. I'm not like that. And Florentino Acosta, I'm gonna just check. I know you've publicly subscribed to you for a year. I feel like you've been subscribing longer, so maybe you turned that on, that it would be public recently. But he's kind of, in response to my video editing black and white photos, he's saying that's the part he doesn't like, the editing. And yep, say it again, I do not like editing at all. It's like the work part of the job. Obviously everything's a job, but it's not the enjoyable part. I do enjoy shooting quite a bit. Would I shoot events for free if I were a billionaire? No. I would focus on my own work, but I still do enjoy it. So, okay, Mr. Oblige, he's responding to my event photography tips and tricks 6 shot types video. Oh. So that is a spam call. I'm leaving my phone on ringer for a reason that I kind of want to address. One thought I've had recently is I've done all the like macro work, so to speak, and I still feel like I can go further with my photography as far as like bookings go. And so rather than take the approach of like, well, what macro thing is left, because I don't really think there's like one big thing I do need to work on, I realized it's more about all the little things that add up. And maybe if something improves, it's like that you want to combine as many improvements as possible to create a more meaningful improvement. So I'm going for all the 1% improvements, if I can respond to people 10 minutes faster over a large amount of responses and adding that with other things that are improving my work ethic, etc. as well, can add up. I did not explain that well, but one thing I realized is that I need to get back to people faster. I've lost jobs within an hour. And just Tuesday, I was in a meeting and I got 2 calls. And I was in an important meeting, so there's nothing I could do. And I called them back right after, and both of them were like, we found someone already. So it's really important to respond if you're looking to book work. You have to just be on the spot right away. Okay, so Mr. Oblige, he says, LOL, I'm a 6'5" black man. I never go unnoticed anywhere, especially when taking photos. Well... I don't remember what I talked about in this video about going unnoticed, but I do have a dedicated video on going unnoticed. And I think what's important is that you lean into your strengths and you try to strengthen your weaknesses as well. You got to do both. And so maybe, you know, as a 6'5" man, you're going to have some advantages that a shorter person will not. You know, I was at one rally and there was a photographer who was like 5 foot or 4 something, and he literally stood in front of everyone who was seated, and and he wasn't in the way. I think I have a lot of advantages as far as my attributes go, my general size and all, but I'm sure I have some disadvantages. I think going unnoticed is so much more about how you move about, not just how you get into position, but also how you get into position. How are you able to move very lightly? Are you graceful? Do you kind of have a heavy stomp when you walk? That kind of thing. And so while being 6'5" will be more challenging to go unnoticed, I think there's a lot you can do. So Tosh says, I cover running events, lots of ultra marathons. I think there's a typo. I have 3 100-mile ultra marathons over each consecutive weekend. Just done one, have another this weekend, then a weekend off, then another. These are like photography endurance events. I started Saturday afternoon, didn't sleep at all Saturday night, and had to work all day Sunday in boiling temps. Then this weekend I'm in the mountains and the weather is forecast for heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. It's a flipping nightmare. I'm too creepy to do glamour photography, though. Regarding that, and you know what, let's sometimes it can be a real grind. For me, the big ones will be like when I'm doing multi-day conferences that can be 12, 13-hour days, and with the editing or the uploading, if I'm only uploading, like, so I have to go home and do all that. And often LA's massive and there's traffic, and so I might need to wake up at 5 a.m. after going to bed at 1 a.m., which can be really hard. It's a grind. But for me, I make enough money in those where it's okay to then to just grind through it. And then it's okay if I don't work a few days after because I've made good money and that kind of thing. But if you're having to work like that really hard and you're not making money, it becomes less worth it. It's not sustainable over a long period of time. So I'm not going to get into this comment. Perhaps a video on using photography as a voice for a cause you believe in. So activism, protests, etc. So first, I think that everyone should have something, and even if you don't, that's not what you want to do, I think that you should have a side project and that kind of thing. I think that if professional photography is your only creative outlet, it's not truly your creative outlet. I think shooting for someone else is not the same as shooting for yourself, and you need to have that balance. What happens if you only have professional photography is that you begin to lose your passion for it, you can resent it, you can feel unfulfilled. And that's exactly what happened to me, which I've spoken a lot about. When you create for yourself, you can separate the two and realize that event photography or any type of professional photography is a job. It's a job that you can be paid quite well at for taking photographs, essentially. I mean, that's a good gig when you're able to look at it that way. But when you're looking at it as your end-all be-all creative pursuit, that's not going to last, in my opinion. I think maybe some people, if you only got into professional work because you thought you'd make good money at it and it's a business to you only, and maybe you won't care. I can't speak to that because for me, I'm an artist first, then a businessman. Okay, this one I can't answer in a very quick response. But Dodo the Bird, Mr. Mick, help me. I don't fricking know how to expose for film. I got an app exposure meter, but the EV is always in high numbers. What does that mean? Why is it why is it overexposed so much? I know I just think it's too much for me to answer, if I'm honest. I can't refer you to any of my videos. I haven't done any of the basics on that. But I would just look out for YouTube videos and see. You can learn that way. But more importantly, you can learn more from these old film photography books, which are valuable resources. And there's so many of them because that was kind of the only way you could learn before outside of school. And of course, when you were in school, you had assigned reading as well. So the knowledge you can get if you go far back is actually probably in print form. Actually, just in general, I would say there was more knowledge out there, more quality knowledge out there. There's a lot more out there if you factor in the internet, YouTube, etc., but I don't think the quality is quite as there. So I would really look into one of these old textbooks or something. I've got a nice collection of them at work, where I teach. I have a few of my own at home as well. Appleseed is commenting on my Ricoh Spotmaster 130Z review. Now, this is one of my favorite reviews I've done, and if you haven't watched it, I recommend it. Alright, I think we're pretty caught up. Let's see. M says, all cameras are as great as photographer that shoot with them. I think, well, your skill will apply to any camera you're using, but that said, if you're using a crappy camera, the work won't be as good as a great camera, or an easy-to-use camera, or a camera that gives you greater control, etc. So, it's not so simple. This guy's trying to sell something on my YouTube channel. I don't like that, really. If you have to buy one of these classic Canon cameras, you need 500. I forgot what is that? The euro? What is that symbol? I'm so stupid sometimes. I'm just drawing a blank. I've traveled through Europe too. That's the euro, right? To buy it secondhand. Yeah, so he's talking about the Canon 1V. I bought mine for like $450, maybe $500 at most, and I believe it's gone up in price. What we can do is just go to eBay real quick. All film cameras have gone up in price. I started really getting buying a lot of film cameras when I was about, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I just watched the prices go up and up and up. So prices, of course, on eBay are all over the place, but I would expect like $700, $750 to buy a good one, good quality one. The one I bought was like brand new. Back then, it was brand new. Not literally, but there was not a mark on it. It looked brand new. Okay. Let's see, anything worth answering. Okay, let's go to some images. I will vocalize everything I'm doing, but I burn out really quickly when I have to speak a lot. And so there will be periods I will likely just go through the images. Like I said in the beginning of the stream, I'm going to be looking for selects. Now, the first thing I typically do is go for very general selects, meaning just like images I really like that I feel make a nice collection of photographs. It's a balance between creating a nice collection of photographs if I were to make like an editorial post kind of thing. That plus, is it just a good photograph? I don't get too into or too worried about if I have two images that are similar. I don't really worry about it at this point. I can always go back and make a selection out of those later. It's just I'm going to kind of intuitively go through the images, and in Lightroom, I believe you can change the hotkeys for it. You can unbind them, I think, and change what color you'll label something depending on what button you press. So for me, I probably kept it default, or I changed it at one point and then I never worried about it again. But for me, and it's probably the same for you, the number 6 will label something as red, and that's what I personally use for my like I mentioned, like just general selects. I don't know why that wasn't converted. Oh, I decided not to make black and whites. So here you can see I have a blue label, but I decided when I delivered the job that it wasn't the right fit for making any black and whites. And while I really loved this image in black and white, I realized it would be odd if I only had one black and white. I just realized one thing. I'm sorry to have to go back. There was someone I promised I would respond to, and it didn't pop. Oh, I haven't responded to. Okay, because I responded. So just real quick, I do apologize. John had a comment I said I would respond to. So John says, good video. I hope to catch you live streaming one of these days. FYI, Control-Enter from the library module does a quick slideshow. Yeah, I really appreciated that. I think I knew it at some point and had forgotten. But problem is it does take a while to generate that slideshow. So I tried to do it last stream and then I had to give up on it because it was generating. Anyway, I enjoy watching you cull your photos. It looks like you often deliver several shots that are nearly identical. Do you find it's better to let the client choose between similar but still distinct shots? I usually force myself to pick one or the other instead of delivering 4 shots that are only different because of the focus point or someone's eyes are looking up versus down. I don't want to overwhelm them with decision fatigue, but I might be overdoing it and taking value away from the client. What are your thoughts? I have many thoughts on this subject. And the real answer is that you have to balance many things. You have to just choose what's the right balance for you. So backing up, I usually force myself to pick one or the other instead of delivering 4 shots that are only slightly different, blah, blah, blah. If you can do that very quickly, I think that would be fine. If you're spending 10 minutes choosing between 4 images, that's not fine. That's a long amount of time, because if you add that up over many images in your collection of work, that's going to add up. So for me, my whole thing is that if I have similar images, one thing is if I feel these similar images would make a good black and white, I will select some to be black and white to give variety. Or maybe I do an alternative crop if I see there's a good alternative crop in there. So if it's like a portrait shot, maybe I'll go horizontal, that kind of thing. But mostly if I feel it's distinctly different, where I feel like a different emotion is being conveyed in the look, then I'll say, okay, it's good enough. But yes, typically don't put the burden of editing down on your client. You want them to be able to find the best images as soon as possible. I'll also add that you need to know your client. So the work we're about to look at, it was a sorority job, and many of them loved the camera, and I knew they were just going to be happy with more photos. And because I did kind of take a peek at the work. I shot this work a few months ago. So before I started the stream, I did take a quick peek. And I realized I could have edited down more, but there were so many damn photos, because it was like, hey, Mick, like constantly, like my attention was constantly being pulled. And I shot a lot. For like a 2-hour job, I shot a lot, because there was always something happening, and my attention was always being grabbed. And so I know I did put a lot of work into the edit, but for me, the hardest part is actually the editing down. And so I realized I could have edited down more in retrospect, but that's in retrospect having been removed from the work. And you're always going to see how you could edit down more. And so at the time, I felt I did a good enough job balanced out with delivering the images in a timely manner. Now, I pride myself on editing quickly. Maybe if you want to give yourself a longer period of time, you can strike a balance that works for you. And then Paul said, hey, Mick, I find myself preferring event photography. This is a good question for anyone interested in pursuing event photography. I have very little interaction with the subjects. I hate posing people. We all know that wedding photography pays well. Can we event photographers match those earnings, or do we have to work twice as hard? I'm going to be super honest that this is a complicated question, and it's not, I think the answer might be that it's not going to be as easy to make as much, but you can. So I'll just really forthcoming with you guys. When I decided to really pursue event photography as my kind of one and only, it doesn't mean I won't take another job. Like, for example, last week I was on set all week for a commercial where I was doing all the print work. So I will take other types of work that I feel are relevant to my skill set and all that, and there is work I will straight up say no to now, but it was a lot harder to transition than I thought it would be. Ultimately, I still believe that specializing, if you want to be the best in your field, pays off. You want to be, you don't want to be master of none, jack of all trades. You want to really say, I'm the event photographer, I'm the go-to person. You want the best, you're going to hire someone who focuses on something. But I underestimated the difficulty in that transition, and so I did take a short-term hit. Now, photography in general is actually very hard to make a full-time living. I think that if you were to I'm speculating, and I don't know the answer, I don't have data in front of me, but my speculation is that, sorry, I got distracted by a comment. My speculation is that the majority of professional photographers are not full-time photographers. I would speculate that maybe 80% of wedding photographers are not full-time wedding photographers. It's very difficult. And if your goal is to do it full-time, that's great. It will be challenging, but you can achieve it. But I would recommend having a game plan. And so maybe that means having a part-time job, and that kind of helps you through that transition. Or that could mean, shooting multiple types of work with the intention of eventually only shooting events, that kind of thing. But having a game plan to make that transition would be smart. Now, it's kind of a hard thing for me to say, because the truth is, part-time professional photographers actually make it harder for full-time photographers, because when you're not doing something entirely for a living, you can be more flexible on your pricing, and so it can hurt the industry in general, in my opinion. But I'm an honest person. I'm not going to tell people, oh no, don't do it. You can't be like that. You have to be positive, and it is what it is, right? But truthfully, it's great money when it's on the side, where maybe you make $400 for an 8-hour day. That's very low, by the way, and that's my point. But that's like, whoa, $400, and at your day job you would have made $200 in the day, and so that seems pretty good. But as a working photographer, a working event photographer, we don't get to work 5 days a week typically. And so making $400 on a Saturday is actually pretty low, unfortunately. You ideally need to make that, what happened? You ideally need to make that over several jobs in the course of a weekend, or you need to book one really big job, that kind of thing. Yes, David, it's live. John says, great answer, thank you. Okay, appreciate it. I hope I was thoroughly able to answer it. All right, so I'm going to go through my selects. This woman was a sweetheart. That's the house mom. Yeah, we're good. So I don't know, that is not my world. I don't know anything about sororities at all. That was not my college life. But I kind of get it. I kind of get it. It was a good vibe at the house, and everyone involved was super nice. So this is a job I actually, like I was saying earlier, in retrospect, I'm like, I could have edited down more, but I knew the girls wanted the photos right away. I thought it through. I balanced out timely delivery. I don't know why I kept so many of these in either. Timely delivery. So this one, in retrospect, I could have maybe done one wide and then maybe gone to one of these, and that would have been good. So yeah, timely delivery with quality photographs, good edit, that kind of thing. I balanced it all out. So I don't overthink it. Just images that stand out to me, I'll hit 6. These 3 girls were funny. They loved the camera, and they're the first people in the front, first people to get photographed pretty much, and then the last 2, you'll see. So context about what the job was, it was, I think they're graduating, and it was like a dinner event for the graduating sisters. And of course, normally I would probably do this in the, in a grid form, so I can kind of see everything and jump ahead and go a bit quicker. But for the sake of the stream, I'm just going to go one by one. It's a nice shot, but that shadow kind of ruins it for me. Of course, I could possibly crop, but another note on this job, it was my first, I think, professional event with the Canon R6. And so I was still trying it out and experimenting. One thing I was experimenting with was they have a new auto white, for me it was new, a new auto white balance feature where if you're photographing in tungsten, you can neutralize that tungsten light, or you can keep that natural like warmth. I've experimented a bit with it. I'm leaning toward not liking it and just being okay with the warmth. So as far as lighting goes, I shot a lot of it just with the available light, with like a lot of it was the Canon 50mm 1.2. My second camera body was my 5D3, which I used for like larger groups, and with that, for that I shot with the flash. Now, looking at the photo, I could be like, oh, she's blurry, and I can pick it apart and all that. Well, this might not look like it, but it was insanely rapid pace, and so of course there were going to be moments I didn't nail it, you know? I might have been looking the other way, someone screamed for my attention, I turned, I quickly grabbed the shot, and I didn't have time to dial in a better aperture to get everyone in focus. Whoa, that's a lot of comments. Typically they come in slow. Let's take a look. David, he's listening to me while I edit. Good talking points. Appreciate it. Bob, my local wedding photographers all charging $1,500 to $2,000 for a wedding, and I'm trying to break in. Is lowballing at, say, $600 going to do more damage than good? It's not going to damage you long term. It damages the industry, but I'm not going to fault you for that, and nor should those people charging more, you know? I think you should charge what you're worth with where you're at. Now, if you're a great photographer and you have a great portfolio, then why should you lowball? Maybe undercut a little bit, but when we're talking about, let's say, like $2,000, I'm gonna use dollars. When we're talking $2,000 versus $2,100, I don't think it's gonna make or break. So typically, you need to get into a completely different price segment. Now, if you feel you're great, some people have the opposite problem where I don't know what the split is, where some people undervalue themselves, some people completely overvalue themselves. I've reached out people to second shoot for me that didn't have much of a portfolio, and they told me their hourly rate, which was higher than mine. I was like, what are you talking about? There's some people that have this like arrogance, but I think a lot of people undervalue themselves. But yeah, if you're one of these people where you don't have the portfolio, and maybe you are a good photographer and you feel you're an incredible photographer, but the reality is, if you don't have the portfolio, nobody knows that, and so you can't really charge what you feel you're worth. So you have to build up to it. You have to build up your portfolio. And so, by the way, on these images, I will go back and do an additional edit than I normally would. So I'll go a little bit further with my edit if I think I might post it to Instagram or whatever, or if it's going to be in my portfolio. So David also said, honestly, Bob, yes. Yeah, that seems like that doesn't seem like that. If you have no experience shooting a wedding and you're not even a working photographer in a different genre, yeah, it's I don't think it's that low, actually. But if you are able to do a competent job and all that, it's pretty damn low. Okay. So Bob's booked 3 at 600, and I'm already starting to think it's low. Yeah, and if you're booking really easily at that price, that's a sign you could probably go up. Drunk Saru, it is low. David, Bob, way too low. I think if you're shooting as a beginner and not confident, it's a way to build a portfolio, but you'll get better, more confidence, and you will charge more. Bob, in my mind, I just thought it'd be worth getting the content from my website. But now I'm already thinking, I don't want to, sorry, the chat's moved. Where was I? But now I'm like already thinking I don't want it to become my standard price. Well, yeah, that's fine. You should always be tweaking your rates, and typically it should be going up. You don't have to raise it every year, but you can raise it every year, that kind of thing. I've been raising mine this year, once things opened up. Chaplain Kyle. Hey Mick, looks like you held the shutter button down and shot a lot of bursts during this event. Can you talk a bit about how to skillfully incorporate this technique into our skill set? Thanks. Okay. For the last 4 months, I'm always tinkering, experimenting, and trying new things. But I have a new camera, and it has this ridiculous shooting speed. I can't imagine needing something like 30, but my camera, if you're using the electronic shutter, does 20. And it is so insane, and it's such overkill, and the only reason you would need it, in my personal opinion, for the type of work I do, is when you're tired and you want to be lazy and you'd rather just be sure you got it. So maybe you need to get a shot of someone running toward you or something like that, and you're just like, I'll figure it out in the edit. You could hold down and do 20 frames a second, and then you're going to have the shot within that group. But I don't think it's necessary, and a lot of why you're seeing more bursts, and not as much in this job, but other jobs I've shot recently, I had a lot more burst shots. That's been because I can, and I'm experimenting, and I'm trying out my new camera. As far as skill goes, I don't know if there's a skillful way to do it. There's the importance of knowing when you should do it versus just being efficient and firing a shot or two, timing your moment and all that. I think I'm more easily able to... Let me think this through. Truthfully, I was able to capture moments really well with the 5D Classic because I perfected my timing so well that I often knew I got the shot. I didn't have to look at the camera after making the image. I often just knew I got it because I was so confident. Now I don't need to be that good to get the shot, but I would say that I probably get more good shots overall now than I did with the 5D Classic. I don't know if that made sense to people. It's actually a lot harder to do this, like to try to edit and talk and also look at chats than you'd think. So here we have a bit bright, so I probably at least could have pulled down the highlights in the edit. Bob, I shot bursts while just turning my focus. That way I'm sure that one of my shots is 100% on it. Yep, I'm in LA. I'm wondering if you're watching that with a delay, because I mentioned being in LA a bit ago. So here I was actively doing some experimentation. I recall that. So that slightly missed my focus, but I realized I didn't have a lot of images of her. Up until that point, at least. So here, while I don't find the image to be amazing, I realize with the crop I can really do something with it. I'm going to really tighten it up, but I'll do that later. So I've been pretty busy with work. However, I don't have as much lined up over the next week. So I should be able to be more active with content. When I've been busier, I've rationalized that live streaming makes more sense because I have a lot of work to show. But most importantly, I think of it as like a double, like two birds with one stone kind of thing, where I get to get some work done and help people and make content for people that people enjoy at the least. Hopefully it helps them. But the reality of it has been that it hasn't been that productive. You can't really do both really well. You're either focused on what you're doing for me, I'm either really focused on my edit or helping people. And for me, what happens is like helping people always overrides like the desire to just get my work done. But I've appreciated the support everyone's shown me recently. That's why I keep doing it. Okay, photographic group, David Law. I think I saw on your Instagram, and it says LA photographer. Oh, Bob Gilbert. I'm in England. It's 8:05 p.m. here, and I don't know how you would say your name. A. Logan, I'm assuming. I'll shoot bursts when doing groups, bigger groups, get more photos. Yeah, if I'm doing a really big group, like a small group, I'm able to kind of defocus my eyes a bit on one person and try to observe everyone at once. And what I'll do in that situation, I'm kind of monitoring for blinks and keeping a tally on it. But when you're photographing like a really big group, you can't. And you just want to make sure you got it. And so a big burst helps. From Bob. I can't believe how blind I'm getting. Do you not find it hard to nail focus when you're shooting an aperture that wide? I always have to be open to 4.2 or so before I'm confident. No, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I really worked hard I detect autofocus to constantly be positioning my focus point on the eye. Although I never shot at like 1.2 that way because I didn't have a lens that shot that way. But now with the R6, the eye detect is so good that you can confidently shoot at 1.2. I unfortunately liked a lot of these images in this last group, but like none were quite there. Like there's something a little off on each of them. I felt like here, her hand got cropped because she unexpectedly threw it down, that kind of thing. And I don't know if I want to post. I don't care, but I don't know if they would want me to post a photo of them flipping the camera off. You know what I mean? So here, hand got cropped because she started walking toward me. I missed, you're not always going to be perfect. That's pretty. Okay, so one thing, I didn't realize that my time wasn't synced up, and I tried to fix it in Lightroom, but I didn't do a good job. So my 5D files all were off time-wise, so you're going to see them all together now, rather than mixed in with the R6. I'm going to go through it a little quicker. Might be able to fix this image enough to make it usable. No, I can't. All right, that was that job. Let's take a look at what I selected. I can either, so I have 46 images I selected. I can do more editing now. I'll leave it to a vote if you guys want to see what I would do to them, or maybe I'll move on to the next job. David says, best not to send it. It'll come up 20 years later in their election and they get canceled for a photo they had 2 decades ago. Yeah, I know, right? I'm not even going to say anything. I'm gonna do some rough edits, but I'm gonna have to come back. Like I said, I can't really split my focus and. So for me, I've mentioned it before. There isn't a correct way to do it, but I tend to focus more on. I'm okay with not trying to neutralize all light to some sort of neutral white light. I'm okay with allowing the ambient light to come through in my photos through a variety of ways, but from how I shoot to how I edit. So they had like fake chandeliers everywhere, and the light was it was warm, it was tungsten balanced. Well, I think there were probably LED lights, but they were balanced to have like a tungsten warmth. Probably balanced to actual tungsten light. So here you can see what the natural light would have, if I neutralize everything. I don't like it. I'm okay with a little bit of that warmth. Sometimes it can make people's teeth a little bit yellower though than they are. Okay, I'm gonna come back to these. Let me see what else I have. Mike and family. I have a lot of work, but maybe we'll go to this wedding. A lot of it was like portraiture, you know. It's one thing I do is I'll seasonally shoot a lot of grad photos because of the area I live in. But I don't know if they'd be as interesting to go through for you guys. We can do it. Some of these events I have, they're just not, I don't think, exciting work. Not that it's bad. Okay, let's go to that wedding. Where was it? So, you guys know I'm not like a wedding photographer. Nowadays, maybe I'll shoot a wedding a year. Often, if I do, I know the person. So, this is Lauren's wedding. She is like family to me in a lot of ways. That's weird. So, this is my best friend growing up, his cousin, and they all lived in the same apartment complex, like his entire family, and I would sleep over every weekend. So they were like family to me. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Why? Oh, because some got converted to RAW, some digital negative. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little over, like I said, focusing on many things. So this is a wedding I shot. You know, I don't shoot a lot, but here's one I shot. It was a very, very small wedding in a pretty small house in a small front yard. So I've talked about how it's really important that you kind of manage your expectations. I think I got some excellent images, but this is not going to be a wedding in the middle of a forest or in Hawaii at a super fancy resort. This is a kind of impromptu. It was thrown together because unfortunately her mother has a terminal diagnosis. Well, not terminal. I don't think it's terminal, but it's not great. And so she really wanted to do a wedding now, although she had a wedding planned several months later, which I'm also photographing still. but this is something I decided to just do. It was a free of charge wedding. They're like family, and so it was a fun one to do. It was really cool seeing everyone. So one thing where she was getting ready, they had this massive, it was so weird. It was like the room was lit by this old tungsten bulb that they don't even make anymore, like an OG tungsten light bulb, not compact flash, nothing like that. And it was really bright and really intense. The walls had a tint to it, so I didn't want to really bounce flash because it would have a tint, and so I shot available. Bob, I'll answer your question, but first you tell me, do you stylize your images? And if so, why? I'm not dodging your question, I'll answer it. I'm just curious. Because it's not the type of work I typically will post anywhere. I'm pretending though. So I'm basically right now pretending I would and what I'd look for, kind of thing. Don't overthink anything. Again, kind of making my basic selects as if I were making a collection of images. It's not necessarily my portfolio, a shot that will make my portfolio or anything like that. Just if I wanted to tell a story, if I were going to share it on YouTube, or if I was going to pretty much any purpose, and to edit down so that I can make true selects if I want to do like a blog post. So Bob responded, I do, and the truth is, it's because I'm not a great photographer yet. So for me, it can hide a multitude of sins when it comes to bad out of camera colors. And do you think when you get better you'll keep doing that? That's cute. I don't know why I have these marked with yellow. Oh, I remember. So that should not have happened. These are way too similar for me to have delivered both. But I don't know why I marked that one. I think I'm biased. I've known Justin so long. That's my best friend growing up, his little brother, who became my younger brother's best friend. So they put this wedding together in like a day or two. And considering that, it turned out so well. I was actually shocked when I got there. Like, I thought I was photographing this like little thing in the yard and it was not going to resemble a wedding. And I got there and they did a great job. Okay, so Bob, this is interesting to me, says, I would say so, yes. In my eyes, they look better with when stylized than without. They look very flat without to me, whereas yours look like they have a bunch of depth. Okay, but the question was, when you feel you're a better photographer, why would you think you won't be able to do that without stylizing? So the question is, long term, if you were a very skilled photographer, would you still have a preference for stylizing your work? Another reason you might do what I'm doing right now, if you're a wedding photographer, some will do a separate gallery of their favorite images to make it easier for their client to kind of find them. So there's that light, you can kind of see it. It was like really intense, but I embraced it. Well, so David's asking Bob, what camera do you use and what lens? And while that can have an impact on what he's talking about, it's going to be negligible compared to how you can mitigate what I think his problem is, with a better understanding of how light works. And then I'll take a pause and I'll kind of give you my full. There's a shot of me. Normally I would not include a shot of me, but they're like family. Hey, my hair was long. I think they had me in a few of the formals. I don't know if they came out well because I didn't have anyone to take it. I thought this was interesting. She's just waiting by the window. I think did I share some of this work before? I'm trying to remember. No, I did not. But actually, I did do a video in which I shared their engagement session. You think I'm setting you up? I think it's important to think critically of our beliefs and what we do. I'm not setting you up to give me the right or wrong answer. Okay. I'm gonna come back to this job. I'll see how long it will take to do a slideshow of something. And then I'll give you an answer because I can't do. You guys want to see photos of me and my cousin? That's an option. How about this? Oh, it looks like I made selections on this job, so perfect. Oh, what did I just do? I don't know why I hit Command P instead of, like, out of muscle memory, instead of Command Enter. Okay, so here are my complete thoughts. I've mentioned this before. There's so many things to consider when talking about why I choose not to stylize my work. And it's kind of hard because I don't know where exactly to begin. So number one, though, I think that, yes, stylizing can be used as a crutch when you're a less than proficient photographer. It can be used to kind of hide mistakes, or that's how people believe, people believe it can. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I do hide technical imperfections in my black and white photography, and to be more precise with my language, it's not really hiding it, but black and whites can be more forgiving when it comes to like camera, like motion blur or bad lighting. That can hide bad lighting, that kind of thing. My personal belief is that photographs should look like photographs. Now, photographs don't necessarily look a certain way. If you go back to film days, different film stocks had different looks, and so there is no correct way a photograph should look. And a photograph is not really reality, it is a depiction of reality. So you can depict reality any way you want. So really, more precisely, I just want my images to have neutral processing and to more or less, I don't feel they need to replicate. I don't think they need to replicate reality, but I kind of lean toward them actually replicating reality and what it felt like when you were there. We don't remember things with filters, you know. Well, we do, but you know, do you want to show them when you want to just give them a reminder of a moment? Maybe do you want to skew that reminder with a stylized image, that kind of thing. Another thing about stylizing your work is that I feel like it is sort of a crutch for people that don't know how to differentiate their work in a more virtuous way. For example, just having a high quality photograph, understanding how light works, using it, that kind of thing. I think that there are more virtuous ways to separate yourself that would include like being really great at capturing the moment, that kind of thing. So while I do want to separate my work from what other photographers are doing, I don't want to choose an arbitrary style to do that. Styles are purely arbitrary, typically, you know. It's like a look that you think looks good, looks cool, or whatever. I'd rather the look of my images, from including all the decisions that go behind making an image, I'd prefer for it all to be with purpose. So everything, you want to control as many decisions as possible, because that's what you're doing as an artist. You're making decisions. So do I want to shoot from above, from below? Why? Do I want to shoot with this lens? Why do I want to shoot with this lens? Is it a practical reason because I don't have the reach with another lens? Or do I want to create, or is it a certain look I'm going for a certain reason? That kind of thing. So really, you always want to shoot with intent. I'm not a fan of stylized images. If your goal is to build an Instagram account, go for it. You know, people like that. But for me, it's not my thing. So I'd love to hear what other people think on the matter. I've got a slideshow going. This is a graduation session. My philosophy behind grad photos is I don't try to get super creative, I'm not going to lie. I'll do a little bit, but I'm mostly doing like conventional stuff. You know, I probably could have cropped this one a bit better. I keep it pretty conventional. I just try to create flattering portraits, you know, a few different looks, that kind of thing. But I think this is the most important thing you want to achieve. Less so than like, well, what a cool shot. Like, well, people don't really frame those cool shots, really, you know? Like, that's the shot mom's going to want printed. Anyway, I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I've got the slideshow going. I'm really trying to hydrate. I don't know why those images both were included, because they're too similar, but I'm imperfect. That's how it is. Okay, a few more thoughts on a few more thoughts on why I don't stylize my images. I had a second to think. I didn't get to everything. One would be that you have to understand event photography doesn't really have the same latitude for creative expression when it comes to stylizing your images as, say, wedding photography or maybe fashion photography and all that. And if you have corporate clients, you absolutely do not want to overly stylize your images for a variety of reasons. One would be that you have to understand the intended use. The intended use might be for just documentation in-house, in which case you probably don't want them stylized. You want them pretty neutral. The intended use would be maybe social media, and if it's for social media, it would have to be consistent with the rest of their posts, so that would include photographs from other photographers. If you overly stylize your image, it will not be consistent with their brand. Additionally, stylized images will be harder to process if they need to apply their own processing to it. So it's not really the right genre if you're interested in that kind of thing. If you really want to stylize images, I just don't think event photography is the place. You can think of fashion photography and think maybe, well, fashion photography involves a lot of stylizing. But when was the last time you saw a Gap ad or something like that? The real jobs that are paying real money. When was the last time you saw one of those and the images were very stylized? Maybe I personally can't think of any. So it's another thing to consider. So I think it might make a cool look and look good on your Instagram account, but ultimately I just don't think event photography is the place for it. Thank you for the tip for more hydration. I'm smart. I use a Brita filter, but yeah, thank you. And also thank you for everyone that has supported me with tips and all that. Like I said earlier, I always go into this thinking, ooh, I'm going to get work done and make content, but I don't really end up getting work done. I end up just teaching. And so while the tips aren't a lot, it's more of a moral boost for me that I really appreciate. And I feel like I made something, If you want to support the channel, as always, though, I have Patreon, and I've been really good about posting more content on it. I've been posting POV footage of not all the jobs I've been shooting, but the ones I feel I can. I don't really feel comfortable, even on my Patreon, posting work if kids were involved, that kind of thing. But any other time, I'm pretty okay with sharing the work with you guys. I don't know why that looks out of focus when I don't think it actually was. I'm going to skip ahead for the more interesting portraits. Choo Choo, do you provide them with all the photos that you took or only the ones you selected? Also, what resolution do you deliver to them? No, my pricing includes, I'm not a fan of that. Everything I've been going through, I've shot, edited, and delivered months ago in some of the cases. So, no, I give them basically everything. I don't just choose selects. What would be the point of that? I consider my client, unless it's your own ego where you just I want only the best work. I never want them to see the stuff I don't feel is the best work. I feel like you're not servicing your client as well as you could. So I do try to put the burden of culling my images on myself, but that said, I'm balancing that out with a timely delivery and everything else, if that makes sense. So in a perfect world, if I had all the time in the world, I bet I could probably edit most of these jobs 20% further, at least, just to have, and that would just be getting rid of similar images and that kind of thing, maybe images that I feel like aren't super strong, that kind of thing. I don't know, but ultimately we're shooting for someone else. We're providing a service to someone, and I think it's a disservice to say, well, here's my 10 best images. I really think that's a relic of the old film days too. Things have changed, you know. Photographers shot differently when it came to film. Like, you have to think about this. At a wedding, photographers knew candids were hard to capture. You could not shoot as much. And so spending a lot of time on candids, you could shoot through like many rolls, which were expensive, not just to buy, but then to process. And maybe you didn't know if you got it or not, so you'd probably overshoot it. And no one was buying those. The old wedding industry, I'm talking film days, what sold were the formal portraits, that kind of thing. And what happened with digital is people opened up a bit more because there was no cost to shooting. They started providing more, and clients expected more. And even if clients didn't expect more, I personally wouldn't change what I do. I provide what I would want to be provided to if I were the client, personally. You know? I just don't think it's worth it. People like to play like marketing games, like, oh, this is what I charge for this, but then you don't get any of the images, and then you have to buy individual images or blah, blah, blah. I don't do it. I do a fair rate for a full service, and I don't count on making sales and prints to make extra money or to make the job worth it to me. So let me see if there was another question. Yeah, you got it, Bob. I hope I was able to thoroughly answer. You know, I don't think there is a correct answer. I gave you what I feel to be true, but you might feel otherwise. You know, once you're beyond the point where you feel like you're only stylizing your images to correct for mistakes. But just in general, yes, I don't really edit for... I don't stylize my images. I'm mostly correcting for exposure, which is never too far off, and color, that kind of thing. So my adjustments are very basic as far as everything else goes. A little bit of contrast. I created my own preset to kind of match the Canon skin tones I really did like from the JPEGs. Pretty basic sharpening. That's practically it. I'll adjust my midtones as needed, or if I have clipping highlights, I'll adjust them, that kind of thing. What best practices are still relevant from the film days that carry over to the now digital era? That's a good question. So most of my knowledge of the film days is that I worked starting out with a guy who had been shooting weddings at the time. I think he still does, for 35 years, I think. He started when he was 20. So I learned a lot about that from him. So I'm not an expert on that, and this is a question I might have to think on for a bit before I really have any answers. David says, are you part of the LA Image Makers group in Facebook? No. I don't have a natural inclination to like be part of communities, and to my detriment, in my opinion. I don't know what that's about, but I've never really looked for community. With YouTube, I guess I've kind of in a way started one, but I've never been like super big on networking and community and Facebook groups and that kind of thing. And I don't really do chat, what do you call them, like Reddits or any of that, for whatever reason. So I already had made selections here, and I think I actually exported them. I should mention, there's more process. Oh, and I didn't answer a question real quick. Let me go back to it. As far as the resolution goes, I do provide full resolution files, and if my client would like them, I do social media sized files. You know, you can run your business where you like charge for everything, and that can have some advantages where when you have someone trying to nickel and dime you, you say, okay, you want to spend this much less, well then this is what you can omit. But for me, I would rather just over deliver on what I provide, and then get a good rate than try to like just play those games personally. And so yeah, creating social media files will take time, but realistically it doesn't take that much time, and so I will do that free of charge for people. Here's another graduation. I don't know if I made selects. No. Oh, okay. And David says, I only ask because there is an SF image makers group. Decent advice there, but if you join the group, the impression you get is everyone is making millions and they license everything. Nah, probably not. There's a lot of bullshit. Most of YouTube is BS. It really upset me when I saw a lot of YouTubers and some I actually liked, which are very few, claiming that 2020 was their best year ever on the books. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Who got married in 2020? Like, just ridiculous. Like the beginning of the pandemic shut everything down. It's hard now, but like in the beginning, and people are claiming it was their best year yet. It's baffling to me. It's possible, but baffling. I can make 3,000 or 4,000 on an event, but not your average event. No, I don't think so. What are you gonna license it for? It just really depends. I have basic usage rights. I provide basic usage rights, but that's like social media stuff. Yeah, you can make more money on licensing, but like that's usually people are spending that for like print ads or whatever, that kind of thing. It's a big subject to tackle. Someone once told me, this is from Chaplin, and it always stuck: when it comes to sound business practice, take care of the people and the business will take care of itself to a large degree. There's so much more, but that is true. That's what I built my business on. Bob says, I'm 18, so I've got no experience with the film era, but for my wedding so far, it's shoot 3,000 images, select down to 500 to 700, and just give them all full hard drive on a stick. Yeah, I mean, that's about right. I feel like 3,000 is a bit high to edit down to 5 to 700. You might be overshooting. I don't know that, but you might be. Or you're really good at editing down, but somewhere in between probably. And David says, yeah, too much bullshitters out there, so it's good to hear your honest take. 2020 was rough for everyone. No, not according to YouTube. Not according to YouTube, right? And like even my YouTube channel was incredibly down. I think I have like, I'm sure there's, I have particularly good insight into where events are right now nationally or even like globally, because my viewership is directly tied to people booking event photography jobs. Very often their first job. So they book their first job, they don't know how to do it, they go on YouTube and they find my video, which happens to be like #1 if you search for event photography. That's where most of my viewership comes from. Not from my subscribers, although like overall on my channel maybe, but like it's a hard one to say, but I could probably check. We could even look. But yeah, I was looking at it earlier. If we take a look at my dashboard, let's go to analytics, and we can see revenue. And by the way, in 3+ years I've been doing this, I've only made like $2,000. I found out that today. I was looking at this, so lifetime. But I want to show you guys what I made 2020. So lifetime I've made less than $2,000, and that's so many hours sunk into this. But if your goal is to make money and you're fluid on your ethics, I think it's a lot easier to be successful on YouTube. Or if you just have different ethics, I'll say. For me, they don't seem to get out of the way. So I can't make clickbait content and like create a persona where I'm telling you about how rich I can make you. Make $10,000 in a week on event photography. You see those videos all the time. It's not true. You wouldn't be on YouTube probably if you made that much on event photography, unless you just really have a desire to teach. But if you really had a desire to teach, you'd be teaching, really teaching. Anyway, so if we go last 365 days, you can see if we go, let's go to like March, if we can do that. September. Oh, so we can't go all the way back to 2020 of March, which is when things got really bad. Let's see if I could probably do a custom. Let's go to 2020. You'll see the dip, I think. It's hard to tell with this thing. Well, anyway, it's okay. But yeah, you could see like my viewership was down until March of this year when we started opening up. Like it was like I had like 20% of the views or something. I mean, even if we go revenue and we just go the last few months. Here, if we go to March. So before that I was making like, it went down to like $40 a month, and then March suddenly I started making more, and you guys can see it's steadily been growing. A lot of the last two have been because of like tips from the live streams, which have helped me morally, but not, it's not a huge amount. But so I think that has been my channel, its performance is definitely directly tied to how much people are booking events. So let's see, next question. It was my best year for my photography business because that's when I launched it. Yeah, I started in like the midst of the Great Recession, so it only got better for a very long time for me. So Bob says, mostly it's being insecure about focus and overshooting. Yeah, that's okay though. You just try to get better and better. Truthfully, it was so much. It felt harder to overshoot before. It's so easy when you can do massive bursts of shots and stuff. How to build a 6-figure business using your camera. Yeah, that's a common one. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. It really does go a long way. It's ridiculous how long it takes to make a slideshow. I don't understand, so I'm gonna cancel that. But I'll share some work with you guys. But then I think I'm gonna call it for the day. These kind of drain me, if I'm honest. It's a lot of work for me. This was one of my favorite jobs I shot this year. The energy of the client and her family was so wonderful. So I have to answer because, like I said, I've lost jobs from not answering calls right away. Hello? Yes, this is Mick. I do, yes. Let me look that up real quick. Saturday. Okay, yeah, actually, I'm free. Do you know how many hours of coverage you'll need? All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry. That was for a job. But like I said in the beginning of this video, I've lost jobs because I didn't answer the phone, and I've lost them within an hour. Sorry about that. I don't think you can even buy a cup of coffee or a latte at a lot of places for $5 now. And unfortunately, YouTube takes a pretty significant cut. It's really messed up, actually. If I'm honest, I think there's better ways to support me, but I appreciate your support any way you can, you know. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee a month, I do have more content on my Patreon page that will open up. So I'm going to go through this real quick, and then I need to write that email to a client, a potential client at this point. So you'll see I have some go-to stuff I will shoot because we looked at a different graduation portrait session. So I do have some go-to spots, and I don't want to call it cookie cutter because it's not, but it's like a combination of some cookie cutter stuff, and then each time I get inspired differently. So it's like you're not entirely machine, and you're not entirely just pure artist on a whim shooting. And so a lot will change based off the vibe of the client and just like what I want to experiment with, because after I get all my safe stuff, my standard go-to stuff, I try different things. I recall at this session, her session wasn't shorter, but I got less done because I had such a large family to also photograph. So we didn't end up with as much time to just do like creative portraits of her alone. And then after this, she also hired me to photograph the party they had after. So yeah. YouTube still takes like 30%, right? Well, honestly, I think it's like almost 50. I'm not even kidding. I'm not sure how I figure it out, but it's like shockingly bad. Let me see if I can pull up. I'm doing it on my laptop. I don't know what their ad revenue is, but the problem is like, they're not competing with anyone. They can take what they want, you know. Like Patreon takes way less. I think it's like maybe 5 to 10%. That's way less. Like, it's unreal actually. I think what. Let me see, monetization. Oh no. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But like, I don't want you guys to go on my Patreon and give me $5 and then cancel because you wanted to do it one time, because they actually won't bill you until the first of the month. So you don't actually get anything if people do that. So they're not great about giving this data, because on my last live stream I made $11.35, but I think I got more than one tip on it. Let me see. And there's no way. Your transaction revenue was $8.40. And I had a super chat where I think you were right about 30%, because it might have been you that gave me 10 and I got $7 out of that, because I got a super chat and a super sticker. The super sticker, whatever the amount was, it only ended up at $1.40. So would that be, what would 30% off of $2 maybe? That sounds about right. So I think that might have been a $2 super sticker. 30% is still high though, you know? And it's not right, because like, they have nothing to do with it. It's like a business owner taking a tip percentage, right? It's not right. Like, I get the ads and all, you know, I'm using their platform, etc., and I know I'm using their platform, but like 30%. But anyway, yeah, my PayPal, my Venmo is all linked to my email, which I'm typing out. So I'll go through this gallery. Then I'm gonna write up an email before I lose a job. In the meanwhile, I'd love to hear requests for a future live stream. Also, unfortunately, what I've been doing is like, I have some structure to my day, but also like a lot of my day is waking up and deciding what I need to get done and writing it out and then following up as best I can. So I tend to know I'm going to do some editing on Monday, that kind of thing. But I haven't been good at planning live streams, because I still kind of go day by day. But I'll start scheduling them as best I can, and I think that way more people will be able to tune in. So when I have jobs to edit, or if I need to go through and find selects, which I failed at for the most part today, I'll do those live streams, but I'm open to hearing ideas on what you guys would like me to cover in a live stream. It's such a nice photo of them. So yeah, I had so much fun. Like, the energy of this entire family was so wild. Like they were just so fun. Everyone was a character, and I felt really at home. It was interesting. So one thing, a little tiny tip, if you've already gone through, let me start fresh. So if you've gone through and rated images and you didn't pay attention to that, and then you rate them again, you could end up unselecting it, except for if you're doing like pick. So once you hit P, you can keep hitting P, and it won't change it. That will be a pick. You can undo it with you, of course. The tilde will do flag as pick or remove. So that you don't want to do either if you've already gone through your images once and now you're just like maybe looking for more selects. That's a nice photo of her. He was big on these rocks and crystals. He had me do this too, where he had me hold it and he read my energy. In the past, I would have rolled my eyes, but we don't know anything, so who knows what's true. He may be onto something for all I know. So that I could have edited out. Just looking for moments, getting all the detail shots, some posed formals, even though we already got them, but we have the sign here. It was really cool too because my client's family and her boyfriend's family had never met each other. This is the first time they met, and so the client's family was all from out of town, and her boyfriend's family had a really nice, put together a little family get together. It was really nice. They were also very sweet too. But yeah, there's something about their energy that just made the job so fun. No matter what the job is, I go into it and it's the same, I'm there and I'm going to document whatever it is, whether it's a corporate event or a family event, it doesn't matter. I go and I document. And I stay present, so time goes pretty fast when you do that, when you're not thinking about your end time or anything. All you do is focus on what's in front of you. But that said, there are going to be jobs. Even though the emotional state should be pretty consistent, there's going to be jobs that you come in and they're just going to be more fun to shoot for a variety of reasons, whether it's because the clients have more energy, they're giving you more to work off of, it's a subject matter you like, whatever it is. What's up, Aman? Logan asks what I was using for the event. Well, several lenses, but an event like this, you could probably get away with just one because you have all the freedom to back up. It becomes less necessary to have multiple lenses. So I probably, I'm guessing, I'm going off memory too. I believe I used the RF50 1.2 and the EF 135 f2. So let's take a look. We go to the metadata. And we'll go lens. Well, that's weird. Oh, because I'm in the JPEGs. Let me do that. So it looks like I used a little bit of everything. I used the 17 to 40, 85 millimeter, 135, and the 50. So the 17 to 40 was probably, there it is. Looks like I didn't use it to get an establishing shot at the party. I don't recall if I just backed up to get that, although I didn't feel like it was necessary. The setup was that necessary to get the wide shot of. The job matters. I think it doesn't hurt to always get that shot, but a corporate event is more important. They want to show scale and show all the people that attended, that kind of thing. Yes, I did. I didn't switch, but I have on R6, and I've never used Capture One. But all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it at that. Though I'm getting fatigued, and I got to get back to this client. So thank you all for your support. It's fun when I do these. I really enjoy helping people, and it's really cool that the comment section, the chat section, has been more active. I really like that. It's cool to see people getting to interact a bit more. It makes me feel like I'm reaching people too. So last thing, if you want to support the channel, Patreon's the best way. I appreciate the super chats and stickers as well, but Patreon is the best way to do it because then I get to help you back. You can unlock different, more posts that I only post to Patreon for a variety of reasons, but one is like I can't share everything publicly, and I want to, so I post to Patreon what I feel like I might not be able to share publicly. Also, I want to support you guys back and give you a little extra content, and if you want to support me a little bit more in those, you got to send that email. Yes, I do. And if you want to support me a little bit more, I can support you even more with portfolio reviews, critiques, etc., job reviews, that kind of thing. And I really enjoy doing that, so I hope you can support me and I can support you back. All right, guys. Thank you all. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Aman. Thank you, Logan. Choo Choo, The Only Path, Drunk, Saru. I won't use your real name because I know it. David Law, if he's still here, I think he left. Bob, all of you guys that participated. John, thank you guys all. That's it for me. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.